Hello everybody, Dusty here. As most of you may know, Death Battle has recently released their Cell vs. Metal Sonic video, and I'll just say that it was absolute cinema. It might just be my new favorite episode of theirs, or at least tied with others such as Bowser vs. Eggman, which was also peak. Spoilers for the ending of that video, but Metal Sonic beat Cell, which I thought was pretty obvious. However, the toxic Dragon Ball Glazers have once again come out to try and claim the results are wrong and that Sonic characters are only city level, or not even planetary as I've seen some of them try to claim. My goal for this video is to show you that in fact Metal Sonic is not only way stronger than Dragon Ball fans claim him to be, but also how he can solo the entire Dragon Ball verse by himself. I want to start off by saying that this is not the type of video I normally post. I normally post just basic 1v1 power scaling debates, death battle style, since, death battle inspired me to get into power scaling, so I took some inspirations from them. The format for this video is going to be like this. I will be going into detail about Metal Sonic's scaling, like his strength and speed. Then I will talk about where the Dragon Ball verse scales, and all of that other good stuff. I also want to preference that I am not making this video to hate on Dragon Ball, as I myself love Dragon Ball, and it is definitely in my top 5 anime of all time. I just want to prove to the toxic Dragon Ball fanboys that Metal Sonic and the Sonicverse is a lot stronger than they care to give him credit for, as well as Dragon Ball not being the strongest verse in fiction, like they will sell their souls to be a fact. With that out of the way, let's begin with the video by talking about Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic is looked down on in terms of strength, especially in recent times, as Sega has slowly been turning him into a fraud, being soloed by Base Shadow and Shadow Generations, despite being in his Metal Overlord state, being nothing more than a servant for Infinite, and even being beaten by Batman's bike. Okay, the DC X Sonic collab comics aren't canon, but my point still stands. However, despite that, Metal Sonic is one of the strongest characters in the entire verse. First of all, there have been many consistent statements of Metal Sonic being Sonic's physical equal. These statements come up very frequently, and Metal has even outmatched Sonic in certain scenarios. This means that anything Sonic can do, or has done, Metal Sonic should be capable of those things as well. So let's quickly take a look at the feats that Sonic himself has done. In Sonic Generations, Sonic was able to fight and defeat the Time Eater, who was so powerful that he was going to destroy entire dimensions and timelines entirely and by himself. Even before he turned Super Sonic, Sonic was at least able to react to and keep up with Time Eater. While debated, these feats should scale Time Eater at a minimum of 4D, and even at a high ball of 5D or a high end, which means Time Eater should be anywhere from universal to multiversal. In Sonic and the Secret Rings, a base Sonic at 50% power was able to defeat Eraser Jin, who had absorbed multiple of the Arabian skies, which should also get him to these multiversal ranges of power, and even still, at a weakened state, base Sonic beat him in a 1v1. This isn't even taking into account Darkspine Sonic, who is leagues stronger than base Sonic in this game. While these two feats are very impressive, and Time Eater and Eraser Jin are really strong, even those two are heavily inferior to Solaris from Sonic 06. Solaris is a divine, super-dimensional, time-eating being who was going to threaten all of existence with his own power. Solaris was going to consume every timeline in existence, which at a minimum is 3 entire timelines. the present timeline, the past timeline, and the future timeline. Supersonic was capable of 1v1ing Solaris in the present and eventually beat him. Before you say that he had help, that's not entirely true. Each one of the 3 hedgehogs 1v1'd Solaris in a different timeline. Shadow 1v1 Solaris in the past timeline, and Silver 1v1'd him in the future. This, at a very minimum, gets Solaris to 5 to 6 dimensional or complex multiversal. However, there are statements that can get him higher. Eggman and other official material has stated directly that Solaris is so powerful that he is above the concepts of dimensionality entirely, which makes Solaris an outer-versal being. That may seem crazy, but we aren't even done yet. In the game Sonic Forces, Sonic and crew were able to defeat Infinite, who has been directly stated to be the strongest adversary that has been seen yet, which includes characters like Solaris and Time Eater. With the power of the Phantom Ruby, Infinite has so much power that Eggman has stated in the Japanese port of the game that Infinite is 1 trillion times stronger than anything else he has ever created, which includes technology like the Egg Salamander, which has been directly stated to have transcended dimensions, similar to Solaris. So yeah, Infinite, like Solaris, can be very easily scaled to outer-versal levels of power, and Sonic was capable of beating Infinite without needing Supersonic. Now let's take a look at the IDW Sonic comics, which are not only canon, but also take place after Sonic Forces, according to multiple official timeline charts. It is in these comics where Metal Sonic truly shines. In these comics, Base Metal was not only capable of keeping up with a post-Forces Sonic, who is stronger than Infinite, but even overpowering him. This isn't even taking into account Metal's other forms like Neo Metal Sonic, Metal Overlord, or even Super Neo Metal Sonic. Speaking of which, as Super Neo Metal Sonic, Metal was capable of not only blitzing, but also completely overpowering both Sonic and Knuckles. Knuckles in himself is incredibly powerful. In Sonic 3, Knuckles was able to match Super Mecha Sonic in terms of power, who at the time was being powered up by the Master Emerald. The Master Emerald, on a very consistent basis, has been described as being stronger than a full set of 7 Chaos Emeralds, which not only does each emerald have infinite energy and power, but they also each have a universe inside of them, as been described. The Master Emerald being stronger than all 7 of them means that it has a multiversal power inside of it, and Knuckles was able to match the power of somebody using said power. And Knuckles has only gotten stronger with age. Now, while it would be immature to say that Super Mecha Sonic was using the full power of the Master Emerald, still using a little bit should make Super Mecha Sonic equal to a full set of Chaos Emeralds. So Super Neo being able to overpower Knuckles and Sonic proves that he can effortlessly overpower multiversal to even outer-versal beings, since the IDW Sonic characters are way stronger than they have been in games like Forces and Sonic 06. While argued, Metal Overlord is either stronger or at least equal to Super Neo Metal Sonic, and Metal Overlord was able to overpower Sonic, Knuckles, and even Shadow by himself. The only reason that the Sonic crew won this fight was because they managed to depower Metal Overlord. Heck, even in Sonic Heroes, Metal Overlord was strong enough to not only be stronger than 3 Super Sonic heroes, but also many other characters. So to summarize Metal Sonic's strength, he should very easily and consistently be scaled to outer-versal levels of power, due to being way stronger than characters like Sonic and Knuckles, who are stronger than beings like Solaris and Infinite. Now let's move on to Metal Sonic's speed, which is what Sonic characters are mostly known for. Metal Sonic is obviously on par with Sonic in terms of speed, and at times he has even blitzed him. Metal Sonic has also blitzed characters like Silver and, as I've said multiple times now, Knuckles, who are relative, although slightly slower, than Sonic in speed. So to find out how fast Metal Sonic really is, let's scale Sonic's speed. Sonic has had very consistent infinite speed feats and higher since Sonic CD in 1993. Modern Sonic is way faster than his classic counterpart, who in Sonic CD was capable of time traveling with his pure speed alone. Obviously, this absolutely breaks the speed equation, since the speed equation is speed equals distance divided by time, and Sonic was ignoring time altogether. This would give classic Sonic immeasurable speeds, and hence modern Sonic by association of being faster. However, he has other feats if you don't want to use his time traveling one. In Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic was capable of traveling through and traversing the Night Palace, which has been directly stated to be an infinite-sized structure. Since Sonic is traveling an infinite distance, and he managed to reach the edge of it, this would give Sonic infinite speeds. And yet, even this isn't the fastest Sonic can go. In Sonic Generations, Sonic was able to run so fast that he was capable of restoring the concept of time itself, as stated by Tails. It was also in this game where it was made very clear that Sonic is faster than even the concept of time itself, which is quite literally immeasurable. Want more proof of this? Well, in that same game, Sonic was capable of running around in white space, which is a dimension of erased time that not only holds the entire Sonic multiverse inside of it, but has also seemingly stretched on for infinity. So Sonic was capable of running through an infinite-sized multiversal structure where the concept of time itself had been erased. And again, in that same game, he could restore the concept of time just by running, and even fought Time Eater in between timelines. Metal Sonic has been stated multiple times to be on par with Sonic, and like I hope I've made clear, has also shown to be faster than Sonic in terms of speed, as well as the rest of the Sonic cast, in even his base form. Metal Sonic has blitzed Sonic on multiple occasions, such as here, and even here. So Metal Sonic should very easily also have these immeasurable speed feats like Sonic has. So to finalize, Metal Sonic scaling, you can scale him to being outer-versal with immeasurable speeds due to being stronger and faster than Sonic and the crew. Now that we got that finished, let's move on to Dragon Ball scaling. Now, Dragon Ball power scaling is not too hard to understand or grasp. Both the manga and anime adaptation have different scalings, since both are essentially the same story, just in different universes. However, both are still canon, so I'll be taking feats from both. I will also be taking the Dragon Ball Z movies into account, as while they are not canon, it would be disingenuous to not include every character in the series when I talk about a specific character soloing the verse. So I'm going to take into account every character we've seen throughout the series. Now let's start by talking about Dragon Ball's strength. OG Dragon Ball doesn't really have any impressive scalings past planetary, so I won't be talking about it here. The first great feat in Dragon Ball is during the Garlic Jr. movie, where Garlic Jr. created the Dead Zone, a void-like pocket dimension meant to eternally trap anyone who gets caught inside of it. While heavily debated, This could be a 4D or universal feat, if anybody actually scaled to it. Garlic Jr., the person who created the dead zone, was overpowered by the dead zone and thus caused himself to be trapped inside of it. If you are physically inferior to something, you would not scale to it. That is dumb. Everybody in that movie was physically overpowered by the dead zone, including Goku, which makes it impossible to argue that anyone would scale to it. A situation you can compare this to is Yuki's black hole from JJK. While very powerful, and would definitely scale the verse to star to even solar system level, has been shown capable of overpowering everyone, even characters like Gojo and Yuki herself, so no one would actually scale to it. This, however, does not mean that Dragon Ball has no universal feats. And if you say that Dragon Ball scales lower than universal, you are downplaying on astronomical levels. In the Namek saga of the Dragon Ball Z anime, Frieza in his second form had been stated to have so much power that he could destroy the entire universe. Characters like Cell and Kid Buu, who are way stronger than a Namek saga second form Frieza, also have universe-busting statements and upscale Namek saga Frieza. Heck, even Goku Black in the future Trunks saga has been shown to be able to cut through reality and have 40 feats of his own. So yeah, at a bare minimum, Dragon Ball is universal. But you can definitely get the verse way higher than this. The most infamous feat in all of Dragon Ball is the punch clash between Goku and Beerus, which created shockwaves that shook the entire macrocosm. I tend to not like using this feat because it not only took two people and also required a long period to do, being the entire fight, but just for the sake of it, let's use this feat. The cosmology of Universe 7 is pretty complex, as it consists of multiple dimensions, some of which being infinite in size like Hell and the Kaioshin realm, but it also includes so many more dimensions. Now, a very debated topic is whether or not the afterlife, which was affected by the clash, is an outer-versal structure, and as a result would make Goku an outer-versal being and characters relative or stronger than him due to the afterlife being affected by this clash. Guidebooks like the Daisenshu have even stated that the afterlife has transcended dimensions, which would make it outer-versal. However, there are a lot of anti-feats that disprove it being an outer-versal structure. For starters, what makes a structure or person outer-versal? To be outer-versal, you need to be above the laws of space, time, and dimensionality. So this statement of transcending dimensions makes it outer-versal, right? While outer-versal interpretations of the Dragon Ball macrocosm don't really hold up when you look at how the setting actually functions. While the guidebooks like the Daisenshu sometimes describe the afterlife as transcending dimensions, that wording is very vague and doesn't automatically imply existence beyond all space, time, and dimensionality. In practice, the afterlife is consistently depicted as a structured realm with clear spatial and temporal properties. For example, Goku physically travels across Snake Way, which has been stated finite length and takes a measurable amount of time to traverse. That alone establishes distance, movement, and duration, core components of space-time. Likewise, King Kai's planet has its own gravity, as stated by King Kai himself, which directly implies the presence of physical laws and spatial framework. A realm that supports gravity, travel, and sequential events cannot reasonably be described as beyond dimensional structure. Because of this, the macrocosm is far more consistently interpreted as a large, possibly multi-layered space-time system rather than something outer-versal. Even if the afterlife is a higher or separate dimension, it still operates within a framework where locations exist, time passes, and interactions follow cause and effect. Outer-versal scalings require a complete transcendence of these concepts, not just being disconnected from the living world or labeled higher dimensional. At best, the feat involving Goku and Beerus supports universal plus to multiversal levels of power, depending on how one interprets the macrocosm structure. But the presence of measurable space, time, and physical laws within the afterlife, which King Kai's planet is a part of, directly contradicts any claims that it exists beyond dimensionality altogether. So outerversal Dragon Ball is not a factual claim. However, the verse definitely has a lot of multiversal metas. In the Fusion Reborn movie, Janemba's reality warping affected the entirety of Universe 7, damaging and even threatening to destroy it all. This is a very solid multiversal feat, but there are also a lot more. In the Future Trunks saga, the Omni King Zeno used his power to completely erase the future timeline, which, based on your interpretation, is a universal to multiversal feat, based on whether you think he completely erased everything, including the multiverse inside that timeline. So as you can tell, the Dragon Ball verse scales to multiversal levels of power with complex multiversal high balls. Now let's talk about how fast the verse is. Now, I know I said earlier that OG Dragon Ball wasn't really that impressive, but I think it's good to mention that even as a child, Goku was incredibly fast, being able to move faster than human perception. All throughout Z, the Z fighters and other characters are very consistently FTL to even MFTL in terms of speed. Such examples are characters like Frieza and Cell, who are capable of space travel at very fast speeds, and characters like Goku and Vegeta, who are able to keep up with them. Their manipulation of ki allowing them to fly would also assist them in moving at these speeds. However, MFTL speeds are nowhere near the maximum speed for Dragon Ball. In the Revenge of Cooler movie, Goku and Metal Cooler were able to fight in the middle of instant transmission, which is a technique that instantly teleports you from location A to location B, which makes this an infinite speed feat. But another infinite speed feat was when Goku was able to fly from King Kai's planet to Hell. So even in Dragon Ball Z, the verse could reach infinite speeds. In Dragon Ball Super, they would still have these infinite speeds that they do in DBZ. However, there are some feats I want to talk about. When Goku fought Hit in the Universe Tournament before the Tournament of Power, Goku managed to overpower Hit's time skip with his own power. King Kai has described this as Goku forcing himself into the future, which would give him immeasurable speeds. However, this is not what is truly happening. Whis has stated that if you have a stronger power level, then you can cancel out your opponent's abilities. This is what is most likely happening here, and it's not Goku actually forcing himself into the future, since this statement is only in the anime and not the manga. However, there is one feat in the DBS manga that can potentially get the verse to even faster than infinite speeds. After Zeno erased the future timeline, Goku and the group were able to move freely despite the concept of time no longer existing. This would give Goku and roughly everyone there inaccessible speeds, as he was able to move in places where time no longer exists. So to summarize, the Dragon Ball universe can be scaled to multiversal with inaccessible speeds. Now, let's head over to the final explanation. So now I want to explain why I believe Metal Sonic solos Dragon Ball by himself. For starters, he is leagues stronger than anything we've seen in Dragon Ball. Metal Sonic can be scaled to Outerversal thanks to being stronger than Solaris, Infinite, and even Sonic, while the Dragon Ball can only manage multiversal levels. Even if you highball Dragon Ball to Complex Multi, that's still 2 whole tiers on the tiering system of strength below Metal Sonic. Another reason that Metal Sonic would likely win and solo the verse is his ability to speed blitz anybody he faces before they could react. While characters like Goku and the Xenoguards are incredibly fast, reaching inaccessible speeds, Metal Sonic is still way faster at immeasurable speeds. For those of you who don't know, immeasurable speeds are faster than inaccessible speeds by a decent margin. So yeah, Metal Sonic is not only dramatically stronger than the Dragon Ball verse, but also a lot faster. Before I end this video, there are a few more final points I want to cover that further proves how Metal Sonic destroys the verse. First of all, characters who don't have inaccessible speeds, meaning most characters from Dragon Ball Z, those of them who don't have these accessible speeds that I have given them, have no defense against Metal Sonic's abilities like Chaos Control, which in the game Sonic Heroes, he has shown the ability to use without the help of the Chaos Emeralds. So Metal Sonic washes OG Dragon Ball all the way up to the future Trunks saga with literally no effort. All he has to do is stop time in one shot. Heck, he doesn't even need to stop time. He could just blitz and one-shot anyone he fights. Even for the characters that won't be affected by the time stop, like Goku, Hit, Jiren, Zeno, etc., he can just blitz in one shot, like I said, due to his superior strength and speed. There are also immortal beings like future Zamasu, the Angels, the Grand Priest, who Metal can't win by killing them. However, you don't need to kill your opponent to win a fight. With Metal's superior strength, he could very easily win the fight by knocking them out, or even just flat out overpowering them. Also, there is nothing stopping Metal from just copying their biodata and learning everything about them, such as their weaknesses, their abilities, and other things like that, and allowing him to end the fight quicker. Now, there's one final question I'm going to answer, and that question is, how can Metal Sonic bypass advanced techniques like Ultra Instinct that prevent characters like the Angels and the Grand Priest from getting hit? Well, the answer to that question is very simple. Do you remember what I mentioned about Whis stating that a higher power level can cancel out hacks? In the Granola arc of the DBS manga, Black Frieza was capable of a one-shotting Goku and bypassing his Ultra Instinct because he was so much stronger than Goku at that moment in time. Like I've made abundantly clear and said a bunch of times, Metal Sonic is so much stronger than even Zeno that he would most likely just ignore Ultra Instinct entirely like Black Frieza did. So that answers how Metal Sonic can beat characters like the Grand Priest, who has full control and mastery over Ultra Instinct. So in conclusion, with how much stronger and faster Metal Sonic is than the Dragon Ball verse, he would solo the verse by himself, even if you don't give him the Chaos Emeralds. I hope you enjoyed that video. I put a lot of time and effort into it since I was so passionate about making it. I want to restate that this video is not to clown on Dragon Ball and hate on it, as I am a huge fan of Dragon Ball myself. So, I also want to know, if you disagree with any of my scales, make sure to comment down below and I'll be happy to see what you disagree with. Anyways, this is Dusty, signing off. Have a wonderful day.